issues raised in this petition have been firmly resolved by the Court of Appeal in Appeal number CA/ABJ/CS/08/2022. Issue estoppel arises when the issue has been decided upon to finality by a court of competent jurisdiction. In other words, once an issue has been raised and distinctly determined between the parties, another party can be allowed to fight that issue all over again. The same issue cannot be raised by other party again in the same or subsequent proceedings except in special circumstances. For issue estoppel to apply, the following conditions must be satisfied. A, the question must have decided, the same question must have been decided in both proceedings. B, the decision which creates the estoppel must be final, and the parties to the judicial decision or their previous to the proceedings in which the estoppel is raised must be the same. To determine whether the above three elements exist, the court will closely examine the reasons for the judgment and other relevant facts that were actually in issue in the proceeding. See the cases of Oyekola and others versus Amudu, OSPM Limited versus Nibel Company Nigeria Limited, and Dasuki Retired versus Federal Republic of Nigeria Sanitation Supply. I have studied the case sought to be relied on as estoppel in this case. It is apparent that the parties in that case are not the same as in the instant petition. The issues, though the same, were not resolved to finality in the previous case. The action was struck out on ground of lack of local standing by the lower court, which this court affirmed on appeal. Thus, the objection on that ground is also discountenanced. On whether the question is statute barred, I had held in the earlier motion filed by the first respondent on 7th May 2023 and third and fourth respondent's motion filed on 12th May 2023, which were taken together. This petition, which is premised on the nomination or sponsorship of the fourth respondent, is a pre-election matter. That being a pre-election matter, it ought to have been instituted and ventilated by the petitioner before the Federal High Court within 14 days from the date of recurrence of the event or action complained of. That not having been done, the course of action in this petition stands barred by virtue of Section 2859 of the 1919 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. On the issue of local standing, I had also held in the previous motions filed on 7/5/23 and 12/5/23 that issues of nomination or sponsorship of candidate by political parties for an election come under pre-election matters. It is settled that the issue of nomination of candidates by substitution is purely a pre-election matter. The only person with the local standing to challenge the nomination is an aspirant who participated in the process of such nomination. In other words, apart from an aspirant who took part in the primary election, no other person is authorized to challenge such nomination by a political party for an election. Such process of challenging the nomination is sanctioned by Section 84, subsection 14 of the Electoral Act 22 and 285, section 14 of the Constitution. C. Shinkafi and another versus Abdul Aziz Ayari and Al Hassan another and Ishaku. It therefore follows that the course of action in this petition, which is rooted in the nomination or sponsorship of the fourth respondent, is a pre-election matter. Being a pre-election matter, the petitioner herein has no local standing to challenge or question such nomination or sponsorship of the fourth respondent by the second respondent. Thus, in People's Democratic Party (PDP) and Independent National Electoral Commission and others, unreported decision of the Supreme Court delivered on 26th day of May 2023 in SC/CV/501/2023. I heard the matter has been reported, but I have not been able to avail myself of the report. Held at the Supreme Court held at page 71 page 31 lines 1 to 16 thereof as follows. Quote, the provision does not make the filing of pre-election matters by political parties an all-comers affair. It is not the purpose of the provision that the floodgate of pre-election litigation be open to political parties who will hide under it to challenge the actions or inactions of rival political parties under the guise of challenging the decision or activities of INEC. The application of Section 285, Section 14C of the Constitution does not extend to a political poking into the affairs of another. The position of the law has always been that no political party can challenge nomination of the candidate of another political party, no matter how pained or disgruntled a political party is with the way and manner another political party is conducting or has conducted its affairs concerning its nomination of its candidates for any position. It must keep mum and remain an onlooker, for it lacks the local standing to challenge such nomination in court, close of court. It is clear, therefore, that a political party such as the petitioner herein only has the local standing to file a pre-election matter when the situation affects it or its candidate by virtue of Section 285, Section 14C of the 1999 Constitution. That being so, as in the instant petition, where the grounds of the petition is rooted on the nomination or sponsorship of the candidate of another political party, this petitioner will have no local standing to institute the action, be it in the Federal High Court or an election tribunal. For that reason, it is my view that the course of action in this petition being on the nomination and sponsorship of the third and fourth respondents by the second respondent applicant, the petition is incompetent for lack of local standing on the petition to institute the action. It is also liable to be struck out for being incompetent. The second respondent applicant also contended that the petition is not properly constituted as the candidate sponsored by the petitioner has not been joined as co-petitioner in the petition. The short answer to that is that Section 133, Subsection 1B of the Electoral Act 2022 entitles a petition as a political party to institute an election petition. The applicant has not referred us to any provision of the Electoral Act or any authority that mandates the political party to file an election petition only when its candidate has been joined as a co-petitioner. It is true that it is proper for the candidate of the party to be so joined, but there is no law that compels the political party to join its candidates in the petition. After all, the purpose of such joinder is so that the candidate can be bound by any judgment or order of the court or tribunal, but any non-joinder will not invalidate the petition. This is particularly so when Section 133, Subsection 1 of the Electoral Act stipulates, I quote, an election petition may be presented by one or more of the following persons: A candidate in an election, or B, a political party which participated in the election. By the use of the disjunctive word or, it means that an election petition may be filed by the candidate alone, or the political party alone, or both of them. The objection on this ground is also discontinued. By another motion filed on the 15th of May 2023, the fifth respondent, Das Kabir Masari, prayed this court to grant him the following reliefs. 1. An order of this court dismissing this petition in its entirety for want of jurisdiction. 2. An order striking out the name of the fifth respondent applicant from this petition for non-disclosure of any reasonable course of action against him. And first, other orders as this honorable court may deem fit to make in the circumstances. The grounds for the application have been stated. I've also considered the submissions of counsel. Now, Section 133. Section 133 of the Electoral Act defines persons who are necessary parties in an election petition. Generally, necessary respondents in an election petition are the persons whose election or return is complained of and the electoral body that conducted the election. This is Section 133, subsection 2 and 3 of the Electoral Act 2022. Those are what are termed statutory respondents. It should be remembered that election petitions are sui generis, and its procedure is strictly regulated by statute. That's why a person does not fall within the category of statutory respondents. They are not registered parties in an election petition. See the cases of Agbere and Mimra, Buhari and Yusuf, APC and PDP, Thus, in Waziri versus Gaidam, the Supreme Court held, I quote, "From the above, I have no difficulty in going along with the submissions of the respective counsel for the respondents that Section 137 sub 2 and 3 of the Electoral 2020 has no room for the joinder of the fifth respondent who neither won the election nor performed any role as electoral officer or agent of the third respondent in the election petition challenging the result of such an election, and even no relief was claimed against the said fifth respondent, and indeed he had nothing to gain or lose in the petition aforesaid." Close of quote. Indeed, a holistic reading of the facts of this petition does not disclose any complaint against the fifth respondent. The only fact that relates to the fifth respondent relevant to the petition is the act of withdrawal of his candidacy as the running mate of the third respondent. That is an act that occurred within the pre-election period, therefore cannot amount to any act done by the fifth respondent at the election. It cannot therefore ground any complaint by the petitioner against the fifth respondent in an election petition. It may be relevant in a pre-election matter, but not in an election petition. It is therefore my finding that there is no any claim on the fifth respondent. In other words, the relief sought in the petition will not in any way affect the fifth respondent, as he did not participate in the petition either as a candidate or agent of the second respondent, and no declaration was made in his favor by the first respondent. In that respect, I hold that the objection of the fifth respondent on this ground has merit. Accordingly, I order that the name of the fifth respondent is struck out of this petition. These are the rulings in respect of the petition number 4. I will now go to the main petition itself. So, after the pre-hearing session, hearing on the petition opened and closed on the 21st of June 2023, the petitioner called one witness and closed his case. None of the respondents called any witness, but tendered some documents from the bar, and the petition was adjourned for adoption of written addresses. Parties then filed and served written addresses as directed by this court, and same were adopted on the 14th of July 2023. The matter was then adjourned for judgment. The first respondent's written address was filed on the 30th of June 2023. Therein, 4 issues were raised for determination as follows. 1, whether considering the facts of the petition and evidence laid thereon, the petitioner has the local standing to question the nomination of the first respondent as a ground of challenging the qualification and return of the third respondent as the winner of the presidential election of 25th February 2023. 2, whether having regard to the facts pleaded and evidence laid thereon, vis-a-vis the provision of Section 134, subsection 3 of the Electoral Act 2022, can the issue of validity of the nomination of the first respondent as the vice president candidate of second respondent be validly raised as a ground before this honorable court to question or challenge the qualification and return of the third respondent as the winner of the presidential election of 25th February 2023. Number 3, if the answer to note 2 is in the affirmative, whether having regard to the facts pleaded, the nomination of the first respondent as the vice president candidate of the second respondent is void, as to render the third respondent not qualified to contest the presidential election of 25th February 2023. 4, whether considering the relief sought as per the petition accrues no utilitarian benefit to the petitioner, this petition not an abuse of court process. Well, to save time, all the other respondents filed briefs and raised issues. These issues have been produced in this judgment, including the issues raised by the petitioner. Now, it is apparent from the averments in the petition, the oral and documentary evidence, and the submissions of counsel that this petition is grounded on the disqualification of the third respondent to have contested the presidential election of 25th February 2023. This is evident in paragraph 15 of the petition, wherein the petitioner pleaded thus. I had read it earlier. This is further explained as emanating from the non-qualification of the first respondent to have contested the election as the vice president candidate of the second respondent. It is specifically pleaded in paragraph 17 of the petition as follows. Your petitioner states that the fourth respondent was not qualified to jointly contest with the third respondent for the presidential election held on 26 February 2023, having been purportedly nominated by the second respondent as its candidate for more than one office. The specific reasons for questioning the qualification of third respondent have been pleaded in paragraph 16(1) and 2 of the petition as follows. Those paragraphs have been reproduced. If you get the judgment, you will see it there. So a combined reading of paragraphs 15, 16, and 17 of the petition, coupled with the particulars thereof, show clearly that the petition is premised on non-qualification of the fourth respondent. I find it necessary to state that the grounds for questioning the return at an election are stipulated in section 135, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act, that has been reproduced earlier. For the purpose of this petition, it is the ground stipulated in section 134(1)(a) that is relevant. In other words, the election of the third and fourth respondent as president and vice president is questioned on the ground that they are not qualified to have contested the said presidential election. I consider paragraphs 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 26, and 28 of the petition as relevant for determination of the petition, which paragraphs have been reproduced in this judgment. In response, the first respondent, that's INEC, filed a reply to the petition where it was averred in paragraphs 14, 15, and 16 of the first respondent reply to the petition as follows, which have also been reproduced. The second respondent also filed a second respondent reply to the petition and also made their own averments in paragraphs 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, and 29, which have been produced herein. So from the totality of the pleadings in the petition and the replies of the respondents, what appears from the complaint of the petitioner is that the fourth respondent, while still a candidate of the second respondent for Borno's Central Senatorial District, was nominated and did accept to be the vice president candidate of the second respondent. That this act violated the provision of Section 35 of the Electoral Act 2022 as it amounted to his double nomination. That in the circumstances, his nomination as an associate of the second respondent for the presidential election is void. That the result is that the third respondent was disqualified from contesting the election because he did not have a validly nominated running mate at the time of the election. A petitioner relied on Section 131 and 142(1) of the 1999 Constitution for his postulation. Section 131 and 142 sub 1 of the Constitution of Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended stipulate as follows. A person shall be qualified for election to the office of president if A, he is a citizen of Nigeria by birth, B, he has attained the age of 40 years, C, he is a member of a political party and is sponsored by that political party, and D, he has been educated up to at least full certificate level or its equivalent. 142(1). In any election to which the foregoing provision of this part of this chapter relate, a candidate for an election to the office of president shall not be deemed to be validly nominated unless he nominates another candidate as his associate from the same political party for his running mate for the office of president, who is to occupy the office of vice president, and that candidate shall be deemed to have been duly elected to the office of vice president if the candidate is for election to the office of president who nominated him as such associate is duly elected as president in accordance with the provisions aforesaid. The general principles of interpretation of the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, is that mere technical rules of interpretation of statutes are to some extent be avoided in a way as not to defeat the principles of government. Thus, where the words used are clear and unambiguous, a literal interpretation should be applied. In the interpretation, therefore, the provisions of the Constitution are to be accorded holistic interpretation so as to avoid ambiguity and arrive at the true intention of the legislature. The court must limit itself to the words used in the Constitution without resort to any external aid or materials. See the cases of Sani and President Federal Republic of Nigeria, Hamadi and INEC, and Agi and PDP and others. Thus, in Wike Ezonwo Nwesom, Honorable Dr. Dokuku, Adol, Peterside, and others, the Supreme Court observed that, I quote, the principle of conception of the Constitution to the effect that a Constitution is a living document, not just a statute, providing a framework for the governance of a country, not only for the present, but for generations yet unborn. It was held that in construing the Constitution, undue regard must not be paid to merely technical rules, because in doing so, the objects of the provisions as well as the intention of the framers of the Constitution will be frustrated. Courts have always been encouraged to adopt a broad and liberal spirit in interpreting the provisions of the Constitution while constantly bearing in mind the object which such provisions were made to serve. Close of court. That being so, where the Constitution has stipulated the qualifications to be attained by a person contesting or seeking to contest for any elective office created by the Constitution, the courts cannot create or import into the Constitution any other qualifying or disqualifying factor. This has been the position of the Supreme Court and dutifully followed by this court. It has therefore been held that qualification or disqualification of candidates to contest election is exclusively determined within the context or scope of the Constitution, and that nothing can be added to it. In other words, the Constitution, being the ground norm, is superior to any other law, including the Electoral Act. Therefore, where the Constitution has qualified a person or candidate to contest an election, no other law except the Constitution itself can disqualify him. The petitioner in this case has premised his complaint of non-qualification or disqualification of the third and fourth respondents as the president and vice presidential candidates of the second respondent on the issue of invalid nomination of the fourth respondent. That the fourth respondent, while still the senatorial candidate of the second respondent for the Borno Central District, allows himself to be nominated as the vice presidential candidate of the second respondent for the same election. In our rulings earlier delivered on the motions and preliminary objections, we had ruled that the petition grounded solely on the issue of invalid nomination or improper nomination is not a cognizable ground of disqualification under the Constitution. In other words, the claim in the petition that the third respondent was not qualified to contest the presidential election because he nominated an associate whose nomination was invalid does not flow from any ground of disqualification of a candidate to the office of president as stipulated in section 131 and 137 of the 1999 Constitution. See the cases of Balewa and Muazu and Faleke and Anik, Tazu versus Ioria. Then in Shinkafi versus Yari, the Supreme Court held that the Supreme Court has listed in section 182, section 182 very exhaustively all the issues that can qualify a person from contesting the office of governor of a state. From the record of this court, the facts have not disclosed any evidence to show that the first respondent was not qualified to contest elections into the office of governor of Zamfara State. It is my view that once a candidate sponsored by his political party has satisfied the provisions set out in Section 177 of the Constitution and is not qualified under Section 182, subsection 1 thereof, he is qualified to stand election to the office of governor of a state. No other law can qualify him. This authority can apply mutandis to Section 1831 and 137 of the Electoral Act. It has not been contended by the petitioner that either the third or fourth respondent is trammeled by the provisions of Section 131 or 137 of the 1999 Constitution. The complaint of the petitioner rooted on nomination and suspension of third and fourth respondent will find accommodation in a pre-election dispute, which the petitioner cannot even pursue, not being a member of the second respondent. This Section 84, Substantive 14 of the Electoral Act 2022 and 285-14 of the Constitution. While I'm tempted to put an end to this petition at this stage, but realizing that this court is not the final court on the matter, I'm constrained to look at the merit of the petition. As pointed out earlier in the course of this judgment, a complaint of the petitioner in this petition is that the third respondent was at the time of the presidential election held on 25th February 2023 not qualified to contest the election. This is because, according to the petitioner, the fourth respondent was not qualified to run on a joint ticket with him, that third respondent, as the fourth respondent nomination was invalid for double nomination, which violates Section 55 of the Electoral Act 2022. As stated earlier, the petitioner contended that the fourth respondent was a candidate of the second respondent for the Borno Central District when the third respondent nominated him as his vice presidential candidate on the 14th July 2022. In other words, that at the time the fourth respondent was nominated, he had accepted nomination as the vice presidential candidate of the second respondent. He was still a validly nominated central candidate of the second respondent for Borno Central District. The petitioner then contended that the second respondent had earlier submitted the name of the third respondent together with that of the fifth respondent to ANIC as his presidential and vice presidential candidates for the 25th February 2023 election. However, that before the date of the election, the fifth respondent withdrew his candidature as the running mate of the third respondent on the 24th June 2023, and the name of the fourth respondent was then submitted to ANIC, that fifth respondent, on the 15th July 2022. That the second respondent did not conduct any fresh primary election for the purpose of picking another running mate for the third respondent after the withdrawal of the fifth respondent. The respondents conceded that the fourth respondent was ab initio the central candidate of second respondent for Borno Central District. However, that on the 6th July 2022, the fourth respondent via a letter dated the same date notified his political party, that second respondent, of his withdrawal from the central candidature. That upon receipt of the fourth respondent letter, the second respondent immediately notified ANIC, and which notification letter was received on the 13th July 2022. That the same letter also notified the first respondent of his intention to conduct a fresh primary election for the replacement of the fourth respondent following his withdrawal as a central candidate. That it was until 14th July 2022 that the fourth respondent was nominated as the third respondent associate for the presidential election of 25th February 2023. The fifth respondent notice of withdrawal as a candidate is in evidence as Exhibit PA2, while the notice of withdrawal and letter of voluntary withdrawal of fourth respondent are in evidence as Exhibits PA3 and PA4 respectively. It will appear that the petitioner is the view that the fourth respondent was still the central candidate of the second respondent as at the 14th of July 2022, when the fourth respondent was nominated as the vice presidential candidate of the second respondent. However, the respondents contended the issue of alleged double nomination of fourth respondent has been determined finally by the Supreme Court in People's Democratic Party, PDP versus ANIC, that in the circumstances, the said judgment of the Supreme Court constitute estoppel parem judicata and binding on the parties in this petition. Now, for a judgment to constitute issue estoppel, the conditions are earlier stated in the rulings. So the three elements must be present and coexist for a plea of estoppel parem judicata to apply. In the cases of Ito and Epe and others, Oshoboja versus Amida and others, and Alexandra and others versus Lone Star Drilling Company Limited, all citation supply. It is obvious that the judgment sought to be relied on for the plea of estoppel is that of the Supreme Court, the highest and final court in this country. There is no doubt that the decision was final, and the issue that was determined by the Supreme Court is the same as in the present petition, with whether the fourth respondent breached Section 35 of the Electoral Act but by allowing himself to be nominated in more than one constituency. The petitioner has, however, argued that the issue decided by the Supreme Court was merely on the local standing of the PDP to question the nomination of the fourth respondent, a candidate of the APC, a different political party. That may well be so, but it is clear from the judgment, thus Exhibit X1, that the Supreme Court pronounced on the substantive issue of double nomination. Though Joro JSC, who delivered the lead judgment, declined to exercise the powers of the Supreme Court under Section 22 of the Supreme Court Act to pronounce on the merit of the case, the other laws of the Supreme Court proceeded to do so. It is settled law that a contributory or concurrent judgment has equal weight as the lead judgment. It is part of the lead judgment and therefore has the same force and binding effect. The mere fact that a concurring or contributory judgment contains what is not in the lead judgment will not whittle down its binding effect. Thus, in Olu Fairba and others versus Abdurrahim, my Lord Fabi JSC said, quote, a concurrent judgment has equal weight with or as a lead judgment. A concurrent judgment complements, edifies, and adds to the lead judgment when the justice adds its certain fact aspects which the writer of the lead judgment did not remember to deal with. Insofar as the concurrent judgment performs same or all the above functions, it has equal force with or as the lead judgment insofar as the principles of stare decisis are concerned. Now, it is apparent that the parties in Exhibit X1, PDP and ANIC and other supra are not the same as in the present petition. The earlier decision, though, involved the first, second, and fourth respondents. The present petitioner was not a party in that case. That is why it was argued by the petitioner herein that Exhibit X1 cannot operate as to stop it from litigating the issue of dominant nomination of the fourth respondent. The respondents have responded that the judgment in PDP and Annex Exhibit X1 is a judgment in rem as opposed to judgment in personam. In law, a judgment in personam is a judgment against persons who are parties or privy to the particular suit or proceeding alone. It is referred to as judgment inter partes. It is a judgment binding on the parties to the action alone. A judgment in rem, on the other hand, is a judgment that determines the status of a person or thing as distinct from the particular interest of a party to the litigation. It is referred to as judgment contramundum, binding on the whole world. It is therefore binding not only on the parties to the dispute, but even non-parties. Therefore, once the status of a person or thing has been pronounced upon by a court of competent jurisdiction, no person is permitted to assert the contrary of what that court has decided. See Black's Law Dictionary, 11th edition at page 1008, Demishola versus Bolarinwa, Yanati Petrochemical Limited and EFCC, then Ladi Jobi and others versus Oguntayo and others, partition supply. It is no doubt that the judgment matter in PDP and INEC others X1 was in respect of the late double nomination of the first respondent as the vice president candidate of the second respondent in the 25th February 2023 presidential election. That is the same issue raised in this petition as grounding the disqualification of the third and fourth respondent in this petition. Pronouncing on this issue in this case, in the contributory judgment, my Lord Okoro JSC, who presided on the panel of the Supreme Court, held as follows, I quote, there is no doubt that the fourth respondent was at a stage nominated as a candidate representing Borno Central District, but upon being muted, he would pair with the third respondent as vice presidential candidate of second respondent, All Progressive Congress, APC, in the 26th February 2023 general election. He withdrew his candidature for the Senate before taking up the position of vice president candidate. Documents in the record attest to this fact. These are APC 1, APC 2, which were made on the 6th and 10th of July 2022, respectively, laws of court. After considering those documents, His Lordship concluded at page 7 of the contrary judgment that, quote, it is crystal clear that the two exhibits alluded to above, the first respondent did the needful by resigning his position of senatorial candidate for Borno Central Senatorial District since 6 July 2022, before being nominated by the third respondent to run alongside him as vice presidential candidate of All Progressive Congress, close quote. My Lord Okoro went on to, after citing Section 31 of the Electoral Act 2022, held at page 8 of his contributory judgment that I quote, the above provision of the Electoral Act 2022 was duly complied with by the respondent. It's my well-considered opinion that as at the 6th of July 2022, having withdrawn his nomination and personally served him on the second respondent of the withdrawal of nomination of on 6 July 2022, the fourth respondent was no longer a candidate for the Borno Central District elections, and his subsequent nomination as vice presidential candidate of the second respondent for the presidential election was not multiple nomination, as there was no longer a nomination for the fourth respondent since his withdrawal on the 6th of July 2022. I have also cited the elaborate contribution of His Lordship, Ajim JSC. So I have endeavored to quote extensively the dicta of the laws of the Supreme Court in PDP and INEC Supra in order to show that the issue of double or even multiple nomination of the fourth respondent as the central candidate and vice presidential candidate of second respondent in the 25th February 2023 general election has been settled to finality. It is a judgment in rem, therefore binding on the parties to this petition and in fact the entire world, including this court. Being the judgment of the final court of the land, of this land, this Supreme Court, no person is permitted to again raise and litigate on it in any other action or proceeding. It is therefore settled and remains settled that this petition, which questions the qualifications and seeks to disqualify the third and fourth respondents from contesting and occupying the seat of President and Vice President of Nigeria on ground of double or multiple nomination of the first respondent and Vice President candidate of the second respondent on ground of double or multiple nomination of fourth respondent has no substance. I only wish to add that Section 35 of the Electoral Act is targeted at the candidate and not the political party. That is why it uses the terms a candidate and normally allows himself to be nominated by more than one political party or more than one constituency. That's to prove that a candidate knowingly allows himself to be so nominated. Both the intent and actual acts of nomination, that is, the mens rea and actus reus of the act prohibited, must be proved, the stipulation in the section being a penal provision. In the instant case, neither the intent nor the fact of the first respondent to allow himself to be so nominated was established. That's why His Lordship Ogumi JSC, in his contributory judgment in Exhibit X1, held as follows, I quote, by Section 31 of the Electoral Act, the fourth respondent, Shetima, was obliged to submit a notice of withdrawal in writing to his party, which he did, and then his party is to deliver that notice to the Commission not later than 90 days to the election. In view of the above stated position of the law on this issue and the facts of this case, there exists no animus or display of intention by the fourth respondent to stand as the nominated candidate of the second respondent for the vice presidential position and also the senator representing Borno Central District in the general election of 25th February 2023. There cannot be any other interpretation in the circumstances unless there is clear intention to knowingly stand as a candidate for two elective posts in the same election cycle. Jim JSC also contributed as follows, quote, the manifest intention to relinquish the earlier nomination to pave way for the nomination of another person to replace him as the party's central candidate cannot be overlooked or disregarded. To simply isolate the assumed or purported short-lived coexistence of the two nominations for treatment as multiple nomination without regard to the obvious intention of the first respondent not to be the party's candidate in elections in two constituencies is against the legislative intent of Section 35 of the Electoral Act 2022. The sequence of the occurrence of the events is not what determines the existence of multiple nomination. it is the intention, design, or purpose to hold 2 or more nominations as candidate for election that shows that the persons who are nominated knowingly did so. Second respondent did not intend that the first respondent should be its candidate for Borno Central election and its vice presidential candidate for the presidential election. And the first respondent did not understand or know that he was so nominated. The word knowingly in Section 35 of the Electoral Act must be interpreted broadly to include all its literal meanings. Barton's Legal Thesaurus, 4th edition by William C. Barton at page 356, is defined to include advisedly, deliberately, designedly, intentionally, learnedly, pointedly, purposefully, with knowledge, etc. It is clear to me, therefore, that from the oral and documentary evidence adduced by the parties on this petition, the intention and fact of knowingly allowing himself to be nominated in more than one constituency, as alleged by the petitioner against the first respondent, has not been established. In other words, both the Ministerial and actus reus of the Act prohibited by Section 35 of the Electoral Act 2020 were not established. One other aspect alleged by the petitioner on its claim of invalid nomination of the third and fourth respondent is that the second respondent did not comply with Section 33 of the Electoral Act in the nomination of the first respondent as vice presidential candidate. That after the withdrawal of the fifth respondent, the second respondent should have conducted a fresh primary election within 14 days for the purpose of nominating a new vice presidential candidate. Now, Section 33 of the Electoral Act stipulates that a political party shall not be allowed to change or substitute its candidate whose name has been submitted under Section 29 of this Act, except in the case of death or withdrawal by a candidate, provided that in the case of such withdrawal or death of a candidate, the political party affected shall, within 14 days of the occurrence of the event, hold a fresh primary election to produce and submit a fresh candidate to the Commission for the election concerned. The interpretation of this provision does not, in my view, cause any difficulty as to require the application of any technical rule of construction. Therefore, a literal interpretation will suffice. It therefore means that where a political party has submitted the name of a candidate pursuant to Section 29 of the Electoral Act Supra, it cannot be allowed to substitute or change that candidate except in the event of death or withdrawal of such candidate. By the proviso thereto, the political party affected is enjoined to conduct a fresh primary election for the purpose of producing a new or fresh candidate to submit to the Electoral Commission. The grounds of the petitioner here is that the fifth respondent withdrew his nomination as vice presidential candidate of the second respondent, but the second respondent did not conduct another primary election for the purpose of producing a new vice presidential candidate within the 14 days prescribed by Section 33 of the Electoral Act. It should be remembered that by Section 142, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution, a presidential candidate for election to the office of president has the sole discretion, authority, or power of nominating his associate who shall run with him in the election as vice president. The choice or nomination of vice presidential candidate is not the product of any primary election. Therefore, in my view, the requirement to conduct a fresh primary election does not apply to the nomination of a vice presidential candidate. Thus, my Lord of GJC highlighted this point in its 1 as follows. The fourth respondent was not required to buy any nomination form. He was the second respondent, APC's candidate at the election into the office of Senator representing Borno Central District. But before the election could hold, he was nominated as the third respondent's associate, who is to occupy the office of vice president. The fourth respondent did not buy a nomination form for the said office, and most importantly, did not contest any primary election in order to emerge as APC's vice president candidate. Close of court. The petitioner in paragraph 28(2) of his petition had averred and also contended in his final address that there was a gap of about 3 weeks between the period the fifth respondent expressed his intention to withdraw and his actual withdrawal or purported nomination, thereby invalidating the nomination of third respondent because the candidature of the third respondent had lapsed and was no longer in a position to constitutionally terminate a running mate. This contention of the petitioner is, however, misconceived. There is nothing in the Constitution which robs a presidential candidate of his right to nominate his associate, who shall be his running mate for the office of president. There is also nothing that invalidates the nomination of a new associate by a presidential candidate as his running mate after the withdrawal of a previous associate, so long as the nomination of the new associate was submitted to the first respondent 90 days before the election as mandated by Section 31 of the Electoral Act 2022. This contention of the petitioner is therefore discountenanced. It is therefore my view that, that the position of a person as vice presidential candidate not being subject to primary election, the provision of Section 33 of the Electoral Act 2022 would not apply. On that note, I hereby hold that the petitioner failed to prove the lone ground of his petition to the effect that the third and fourth respondents were not qualified to contest the election held on 25th February 2023 for the reason of double nomination. Having resolved the sole issue of this petition against the petitioner, this position is held to be devoid of any merit. Well, we'll rise for just 15 minutes and continue with petition number 3 and 5. I can see Dr. Levy moving up and down. So, as an elderly person, I know what is going on.
We're just wondering, sir. we just wonder, my Lord, if your brethren agree with your judgments or not.
Pardon?
I said, we're just wondering.
No, it's a consolidated judgment. They will give their contributions after we have read all the judgments.
Oh, my Lord, yes. Please. We just needed to know, sir.
Yes, they will give their.
Thank you very much, my Lord. Thank you, sir.
Call the court.
Actually.
Well, so far.
The first part. Well, we can't tell at this time if it's the first part, but first part of the proceedings has just gone underway.
Well, what the justice said was...
Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has again warned the Niger military junta that nothing must happen to the disposed democratically elected president of the country, Mohamed Bazoum. The president of the ECOWAS Commission, Oman Tora, at a press conference in Abuja, says the sub-regional body has neither declared war on the people of Niger Republic nor planned to invade the country. He reiterates that the ECOWAS would keep all options on the table for a peaceful resolution to the crisis, though it had earlier ordered the activation of its standby force to restore constitutional order in Niger. Recall that the former commander of Niger's Presidential Guard, Abdurrahman Inchani, had in a military coup on July 26 ousted the democratically elected president of the country, Mohamed Bazoum. The president of the ECOWAS Commission notes that the ECOWAS would employ all measures, including the use of standby force, to restore civil rule in Niger Republic. Sora explains that Niger Republic, being one of the member states of ECOWAS, subscribed to its rules and regulations to deploy measures to support its fight against terrorism to ensure the restoration of democracy, peace, and security in the community. Tora notes that preparations are in top gear to deploy standby force to Niger, urging the Niger junta to listen to ECOWAS as it will not accept coup. Meanwhile, the military junta has given French Ambassador Sylvain Itel 48-hour ultimatum to leave Niger Republic. A statement indicates that the junta's decision was as a result of the French ambassador's refusal to honor an invitation from the Nigerian Foreign Affairs Minister. In response to the ultimatum, the French government says it does not recognize the military ruler's authority in Niger. Hence, its ambassador won't vacate the country. Jude Aweke, reporting for VOS TV News, Benin.
The long haul.
Long haul means by implication.
Yeah.
We could be here for another 2 to 3 hours, so to speak. Well, but, in response to one of the council's inquiry just moments ago, Justice Samani may have said that, it's a contributory judgment. We wonder what's the implication of that. Is it that it's a contributory judgment from all of the other 4 justices, or will there be a dissenting judgment?
Well, I guess that's what we'll wait to see, because, if you recall what Mr. Kwek has told us the other time, as well as Dr. Otitoju in Abuja, that look, a lead judgment could take X number of hours. And if you also recall what the justice said to us, this is just the judgment. There are other arguments in it. You have to get it later. I'm like, okay, so...
Leaders of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, in Edo North Senatorial District have distanced themselves from the state deputy governor, Comrade Philip Shaibu's governorship ambition ahead of the 2024 Edo State gubernatorial elections. The PDP leaders at a press briefing in Benin City vowed to throw their weight behind Governor Godwin Obaseki's anointed candidate, come 2024. Deborah Nikoro has the details.
The press briefing at the instance of PDP leaders from the 6 local government areas of Edo North is coming on the heels of the alleged feud between the state governor Godwin Obaseki and his deputy comrade Philip Shaibu over Shaibu's ambition to succeed his principal as Edo State governor comes 2024. It was alleged that Governor Obaseki insists on zoning of the governorship ticket to Edo Central and not Edo North, his deputy senatorial district. Addressing newsmen at the Edo State Secretariat of the NUJ in Benin, the Edo North PDP leaders, led by the former speaker of the EDHA, Kabiru Ajoto, says all efforts by a delegation of the leaders to resolve the conflict between the duo of Obaseki and Shaibu proved abortive, alleging that Comrade Shaibu paid deaf ears to peaceful resolution bid.
The people of Edo North, we met severally. For the past 1 week, we have been doing consultation, meeting, interest group, women organization, artisans, student group, to have discussions that what is happening in Edo, is it good? What should we do? Initially, we decided to play low because democracy is about disagreement and agreement. And what is important at the end of the day is to agree for the benefit of the people. We decided as a group and as a people to send a powerful delegation to the deputy governor to urge him, to beg him to make peace with his boss, the governor of Edo State. Because at the end of every war, you end up in a roundtable conference and decide and make peace. But to our greatest surprise, he turned the offer for peace down. To our greatest surprise, just on pages of newspaper, on social media, we started reading that he has taken the governor of Edo State to court. That is quite unfortunate. So as a leader, and as leaders of the 6 local governments, we met again and said, we cannot keep quiet. Because if we are quiet, it can be taken for our consent. Let us speak out to help the views of our people. You cannot have 2 captains in a ship, particularly in a setting, in a state setting like Edo or in Nigeria. The governor is the governor of the state. That governor is Godwin Obaseki. The office of the deputy governor is just an office in the office of the governor. It's not different from the office of the governor.
The PDP leaders described as ugly and unfortunate the alleged rift between the governor and his deputy, which has now led to alleged impeachment plots and court action to counter such moves.
The deputy governor of Edo State, Comrade Philip Shaibu, is trying to outshine his master, which is quite unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate. We are here to say, the people of Afemai, we are not with him. The PDP leader of Afemai, we are not with him. We are solidly behind the governor of Edo State, Godwin Obaseki. I cannot tell you that I know the name of the deputy governor of Delta State, even when ECOWAS was there. I don't know him. I don't know the name of the deputy governor of Lagos, Akwa Ibom. I don't think I know. But in Nigeria, the deputy governor of Edo State, Comrade Philip Shaibu, is a household name. It is not by his making. It is because the governor of Edo State, Comrade His Excellency Godwin Obaseki, give him a very wide latitude. I think with that, he mistook the governor's simplicity for stupidity. And we, the Edo North people, we are very, very, very grateful people. We are not treacherous people. Edo North people are with him, and we are ready to follow him. Whoever he points at, because he has done so well, not just for the people of Edo North, but for the entire state. Whoever he points at, because we know his judgment cannot be wrong. Whoever he points that this is my successor, the Edo North people will follow him.
The PDP leaders also lauded Governor Obaseki's development strides in Edo North senatorial districts of the state, vowing to queue behind his anointed candidate comes 2024 Edo gubernatorial election. Deborah Nikoro reporting for VOS TV News, Benin.
Edo people have continued to express concerns on the alleged feud between the state Governor Godwin Obaseki. Leaders of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, in Edo North Senatorial District have distanced themselves from the state Deputy Governor, Comrade Philip Shaibu's governorship ambition ahead of the 2024 Edo State gubernatorial elections. The PDP leaders at a press briefing in Benin City vowed to throw their weight behind Governor Godwin Obaseki's anointed candidate come 2024. Deborah Nikoro has the details.
The press briefing at the instance of PDP leaders from the 6 local government areas of Edo North is coming on the heels of the alleged feud between the state governor Godwin Obaseki and his deputy comrade Philip Shaibu over Shaibu's ambition to succeed his principal as Edo State governor comes 2024. It was alleged that Governor Obaseki insists on zoning of the governorship ticket to Edo Central and not Edo North, his deputy senatorial district. Addressing newsmen at the Edo State Secretariat of the NUJ in Benin, the Edo North PDP leaders, led by the former speaker of the EDHA, Kabiru Ajoto, says all efforts by a delegation of the leaders to resolve the conflict between the duo of Obaseki and Shaibu proved abortive, alleging that Comrade Shaibu paid deaf ears to peaceful resolution bid.
The people of Edo North, we met severally. For the past 1 week, we have been doing consultation, meeting, interest group, women organization, artisans, student group, to have discussions that what is happening in Edo, is it good? What should we do?
Motorists and commuters have again drawn government's attention to the deplorable condition of the Benin-Sapele Federal Road in the outskirts of the metropolis. Deborah Nikoro visited the failed portions of the road to feel the plight of the people.
This is the situation of the RCC junction along Sapele Road, Benin City, the Edo State capital. Motorists and commuters plying this road say they have long been yearning for the government intervention. The persistent rainfall has worsened the deplorable condition of the federal road. The road users appeal to the government to swing into action to avert further damage to the road and even commercial vehicles.
This is federal road. It's a shameful thing. Federal road is like this. The other day, government was passing this road. They were blowing siren and they were hooked. They were stuck inside this place. They couldn't pass because of the bad road. And everybody was shouting, look at the road, it's very bad. They should come to our rescue. They should come and help us. If from Ring Road to this place, if we want to take a bus from Ring Road to this place, they'll charge us almost 1,000 naira. How can we pay 1,000 naira inside the city? Benin City. It's really bad. It's bad. It's appalling. It's a shameful thing to our government. It's a shameful thing to the president of Nigeria. We are so ashamed to call you our president. Look at the road we are passing every day. Cars are spoiling here. You need to see the vehicles that are spoiled here yesterday.
Thing don't tire us. If you pass this road, you go hold your heart. The passenger, if a woman will get belly, picking the back of us, belly be that one. We they beg the government, make it help us. We know send a federal route, but with your own power, the federal go listen to them. You know what I mean? So everybody they cry for this road. You get me rain go take phone now, we don't fit pass here. You know if you carry person for inside motor, the person go dey fear say you want kind pass somewhere. And our motor, the down leaky, they kill them, tire they die up and down. We they beg the government. Obaseki, we like you so much. Beg the federal government, may help us come repair this road. You get the power to beg them. Apart
from the Benin-Sapele Road, some other major roads in Edo State yearning for government attention includes the Siloko axis, the Benin-Lagos Road, and the Benin-Auchi-Lokoja Road. Over the years, the people say these roads have been left unattended to by both the federal and state governments.
What they say, I don't like mostly where they come, so supposed to reach this place now, you're supposed to pass this place at once. But when you reach here, Now problem, the water, the road is bad, everything just scatter. And then they spoil our car, they spoil the leg. It was at the time, so my leg car now, it does spoil. And the driver graduate, that's why I on double traffic gate. We don't do suffer. They do the road for us.
Even to yesterday, I not be even say the road again. Now people when they die for inside, people they die for here every day. I bet make they call help us. No be they go affect them or their relation die for here. People they die every day here.
I see everywhere is very bad. The whole road is very bad. You can see the Pinot Junction and this Rock of Ages Junction. Even where I'm going to now, BIU, that road is very bad after bypass. So the whole road in Edo State is very rough, very bad. And so we are looking forward to on God.
The people's expectations are high that the government will hearken to their appeal for the reconstruction of the deplorable routes. Deborah Nikoro, reporting for VOS TV News, Benin.
For the carnal-minded in the society. Contrarily, there has been an increase in the rate of men of God quitting their pastoral and priestly journey to start a career in politics. In this special report, Jude Aweke feels the pulse of the people on the question, should men of God entangle themselves in politics?
It has been a norm to see clerics jettisoning the pulpits for politics. The quest to seize power has led to increase in number of men of God declaring their intentions to run for various elective offices in the country, from presidency to National Assembly, gubernatorial race, among other elective offices in the country. Some clerics have been and still declaring their ambitions to govern. Respondents in reaction expressed divergent views on the topic of discourse. While some frown at it, others support such moves against the backdrop of the biblical injunction that says, when the righteous are in power, the people rejoice.
I said it's good for pastors to be part of politics, to create more awareness for their members, so that they will know all the happenings in the world. We can no longer live in the past, so it's very good. They cannot make it to be clean. The pastors can make it to become clean the way they met it. It will not be better than what they met politics to be.
To me, it's a good thing. Because God is not against his children going into politics. What matters is what you did with that position that God gave you opportunity to achieve. So that is why even the Bible says that when a righteous man is on the throne, the people rejoice. But when the wicked man is on the throne, then the people cry, they weep. As a matter of fact, what we are experiencing today in our country is a result of the people that is there. They don't have the fear of God. God is not against anybody going into politics. In fact, it will be a great privilege if any Christian, a born-again Christian, the one that have the fear of God, will be into that position. Because it will no longer rule according to his own desire. It will be according to God's desire. And there is no how somebody can allow God to direct him in any position that he is, that people will not happy. Except the wicked one that will be against that person. So there is nothing wrong with it.
We don't try the people. You don't see benefits for there. But if pastor go there, you go see have the God mind to do better thing for people.
The pastor should go there and do the right thing. Because without the righteous, the Bible said that when the righteous rule, the people rejoice. But when the unbelievers rule, the people mourn. When the unrighteous rule, the people mourn. So we need men of God here to clean it. It's a welcome idea.
Some others who believe that politics is a dirty game say clergymen has no business delving into political sphere.
As a pastor, you are a godly man. If you want to go to politics, you do so many fetish things. Normally, as a pastor, if you want to go to politics, you do so many fetish things. You can go and kill. You can send some people to go and do one or two things that is not right. As a pastor, you understand me? So to me, as a pastor, you are not supposed to go into politics because you put your hand in so many fetish things. You understand me? As a pastor, I don't support that. As a pastor, you do what is supposed to be godly. As a pastor, You want to go into politics, that you want to do, you are trying to tell me that you are going to another area.
Better hear matter. I don't see our pastor leave God when he want worship because that's in our politics. Now you want to go do. Now Mumu level, now you shake a mouth, he fine. You ask me the question, say he fine. You're not fine now. How you say pastor now you go leave church, leave our free, leave tight. It's in our politics. You know work now. You cannot start two masses at the same time now. Eh? So any pastor, look my face, look my face. Any pastor you do that Mumu level, go and look see, look my face where. Now me be Omale, now Mumu level you do wrong.
At a time, people are yearning for good governance in the country. Consensus is that politicians, irrespective of pastoral or priestly calling, should be allowed to delve into politics to contribute their quota to good governance. Jude Aweke, reporting for Viewers TV News, Benin.
The national chairman of the Labour Party, Julius Abure, says Governor Godwin Obaseki has concluded plans to manipulate the local government election. He disclosed this at the mega rally of the party held this Monday in Benin. Judah Weke tells us more.
Addressing party faithful at the Labour Party mega rally in Benin City, the national chairman of the party, Julius Abure, alleges that the state governor, Godwin Obaseki, has planned to rig the local government election scheduled for 2nd of next month.
Why we want to praise for allowing this local government election to hold. We want to warn and state categorically that there must be free, fair, credible local government election. The local government system in Nigeria was introduced to bring government closer to the people. It was introduced to bring development to the people. It was created to bring healthcare facility, to bring education, to bring life to the grassroots. It was created to bring better life to our people. Unfortunately, and unfortunately, and unfortunately, and unfortunately, our governors across the federation have destroyed the local government system in Nigeria.
While canvassing for support for the party's flag bearers ahead of the election, Julius Abure warned Governor Godwin Obaseki to desist from his alleged plan to manipulate the election, adding that his party will not condone manipulation this time around.
We want to appeal to the governor of Edo State that the rumor are hearing that he's going to write results in Osadebe Avenue should be discontinued. We want to appeal to him that he should not write results this time around. It is because of that we have decided to mobilize our people to send a signal that we have the best of candidates that can man local government system in Edo State. Today, you will agree with me that the new Nigeria we are pursuing, the new Nigeria that Peter Obi and the Labour Party has come to represent, is driven on performance, is driven on integrity, is driven on honesty, is driven on performance, is driven on proactiveness. And that's why we have taken our time to select the best of the best of the best amongst us as chairman of council.
As the Edo LGA election approaches, the Labour Party is optimistic of victory across the 18 local government areas of the state. Jude Aweke, reporting for Viewers TV News, Benin.
The recent ministerial appointment by the President Tinubu-led administration has continued to stir up reactions days after the swearing-in ceremony. One of such appointments is that of David Umahi, a former governor of Ebonyi State and a serving senator representing Ebonyi South as Minister of Works. Ms. Emi Salami reports that some residents in Benin City had a lot to say about the appointment.
The appointment of some persons by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to serve as ministers continues to generate reactions from a cross-section of the public. One of such cases is the appointment of Senator Dave Umahi as Minister of Works, despite the fact that he is a serving senator in the 10th Senate. Some respondents in Benin City, the Edo State capital, question the rationale behind the appointment of someone who already holds a public office to serve in another capacity.
The president decided to make a service senator a minister. It's with mixed feeling. In the first place, it shouldn't have been, because I see this Nigerian democracy as a kind of
The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has again warned the Niger military junta that nothing
and his deputy, Comrade Philip Shaibu. Jude Aweke reports that they are appealing to the duo of Obaseki and Shaibu to toe the path of peace for the interest of the state.
The alleged rangy feud between the Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki and his deputy Comrade Philip Shaibu, according to political analysts, is in connection with Philip Shaibu's ambition to succeed Governor Godwin Obaseki as the state governor comes 2024, an ambition they claim the governor is against, following his decision on zoning of the governorship tickets to Edo Central Senatorial District and not Edo North, the senatorial district of his deputy. Comrade Philip Shaibu, who allegedly perceived impeachment plots against him, recently approached the Abuja division of the Federal High Court to file a suit to stop his alleged impeachment plots. In the suit, Comrade Philip Shaibu cited the IGP, SSS, Governor Godwin Obaseki, the Speaker of EDHA, and the Chief Judge of the state as the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth respondents, respectively. Some of the state legislators who debunked the alleged impeachment plot frowned at the deputy governor for resorting to court action. In a reaction, residents in Benin City expressed disappointment with the feud between the duo, describing it as unnecessary.
They are not fighting because there are bad roads. They are not fighting because there are no pipe-borne water flowing in our respective houses. They are not fighting because of lack of welfare package to the citizenry. They are fighting for their own self-interest. Therefore, whether they fight or not, I will advise Edo people to be spectators. I don't want them to intrude, because when they will settle, you will not be there. They will certainly settle, because they are best of faith that they flock together. They are fighting because of crash or personal interest. They are not fighting because Sapler Road is not motorable. They are not fighting because Ewotubu roads, Ewotubu and Everest are not motorable. They are not fighting because the urban market have been raised down for over 2 years and is yet on feast.
Maybe they get this state. The House of Assembly should go into it and make a peace talk. Huh? It's not good for them, two of them to be where they have a misunderstanding. The state will not move forward.
Others urged the governor and his deputy to reconcile and toe the path of peace for the interest of the state.
You know, when something happens like this between the head and the second, I'm talking about the governor and the deputy. You know, from the starting, it wasn't like this. But Satan always, wanted to choke so that he will tear a good thing apart. You know, I'll advise them not to go far in other, fighting like that. They will come back home. You know, there is something happening everywhere. It is Satan work. So let them come back home and then, shave their reef, make peace. Because the Bible says, without peace, no one will see God.
We know that a new election is coming, and the deputy governor have interest in being the governor of the state. So ordinarily, he will look out for his own interests. So that's the issue. But I would say that at the end of the day, when two elephants go to battle, it is the grass that will suffer. So they should also consider the interests of Edo indigenes generally as a whole. So whatever their conflict is, I see Shaibu, drifting towards APC now. And ordinarily is an APC man, but because of interest, he moved to PDP.
Meanwhile, Governor Godwin Obaseki's camp has debunked the impeachment plot, while the Shaibu's camp had, however, declined to comment on the issue, which according to them is necessary in order not to aggravate it. Jude Aweke, reporting for VOS TV News, Benin.